Good morning.
Good morning. I'm not going to be on video for a little bit because I'm getting ready for my
All
day.
right. I can't wait to see the finished product. All right. So we begin. Call 1 of 5 for the Untethered Soul Transformational Book Study Club. So, first of all, I want to thank you for entrusting me with such a conversation and such an exploration. And I would love for each of us to start out, since we'll be spending the next 5 weeks with each other and studying this material together. I would like everybody to just do a brief introduction. I feel very conscious of how quickly an hour will go each time. So I do have a good plan, and I am a seasoned producer. So I try very much to, have a sense of timing and distribution of that time. So it's super impactful. And so I would love you to just introduce yourself by name and the answer to the question that I submitted to everybody. And as a reminder, that question is this: if something could transform or change inside of you as a result of this experience together, what do you want that to feel like? So it was the question that I'd submitted to you in the email I sent to everybody. So if something could transform or change inside you as a result of this experience together, what do you want that to feel like? Now, that's a very specific question. Please notice I'm asking you what you want it to feel like. So that's different than so it probably wouldn't sound like, well, I think it wouldn't start out with that as the answer. And then third, your experience with this material, none or some, whatever that is. So I'll start out. My name is Michelle Zwicker. And the answer to that question, I actually did spend some time considering it, is I want to feel flow, and I want to feel an opening inside of me, and I want to feel amused by life. So that's the way that I really want to feel. I'm familiar with that feeling. And I'm also familiar with losing touch of that feeling. So I know the opposite of flow. I've been experiencing a lot of that lately. And I know the opposite of open. And I've also been feeling that too, like a quality of closedness inside of me, or closing versus opening. And I totally know what it feels like to be amused by life. I love it when I'm living there. It's different than being discerning and judgmental and opinionated and cranky and moody and all these other things. And as we may experience in the reading of this material, overly identified by things that I don't want to identify me, or I don't want to be identified by. And then third, I have been a fan of this book for a very long time. So I have read it probably, like we're going to read it, maybe 4 times, maybe 5. And so I have had a pretty profound experience with it, which is why I can stand by it as I'm doing and inviting you into it with me. All right, so ideally it takes no more than a minute per person, probably less. So I will ask for who goes next so we don't waste time wondering. And I'm looking right at Michelle Ross, just because you happen to be in the center of my Zoom. So unmute yourself and please do the same. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Michelle Ross, and good to be here. And the answer that I came up with to this question is I want to feel freedom, butterflies, more ease in my mind, peace, and love. And yeah.
Big sigh, goosebumps all over.
And I guess my experience so far with the book
Well,
is,
actually, what I meant by
oh,
that question is, have
yeah.
you read it before or is this your first time?
I have had the book for many years. I've probably read parts of it. And so now I'm being forced, not really, but to read the whole thing.
Obligated.
Yeah. So is that all you want to know?
Perfect. Thank you,
Okay.
Michelle.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm looking at Melody. Is that you on the screen, Melody, or is that a picture?
That's my picture.
Can we see you live? Is that possible?
Can you give me like can let you let someone go first and then I'll go next because I need to.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks. Steve.
Good morning, Steve Matsumoto, and this is my first time reading the book. The feeling to answer the question in terms of the feelings, the first one that came up for me was a feeling of ease or easiness, a greater feeling of presence, and then Michelle, you used the word open, and sneaking ahead, I just finished section 2, so the way they use the word open in section 2 struck a chord with me, even though I know that's not on the curriculum for today.
Please don't worry about it. I saw you nodding your head passionately when I said open, so I get it. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Perfect. All right. And then let's go to Sam.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm Sam. This is not my first time reading it. I've probably read it about 5 times in the last month and a half. Felt absolutely in love with it. When I think about what I want from the book, it's more of an experience. I want to feel like expansive Teflon full of love.
Ah, thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Wonderful. And Patty.
Hi. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we're in Barbara. So I'm Patty and this is my second go around with the book. I really enjoy it. I read it a while back. So but my goal is to obtain more release and live a uplifting and enlightened life. And I forgot the other question, Michelle.
You answered them all and you did it perfect.
Awesome. Okay, good deal.
Thank you. And it looks like Melody is ready to be seen.
Hello, good morning. Yeah, so I would love to come out of this feeling more open and like have more intimacy in my relationships and have more freedom and more joy.
Mm.
Yeah. And the book, I've gotten halfway through it before. I've never made it all the way through it.
Awesome. Thank you.
And
That is good. Cheryl Johnson.
Hi, everyone. I was a little late, so I get the gist of the question. I have poked around at the book before. I didn't get through actually our whole first, even this section, but it is what was interesting to me was that
So let
My
me just
therapist,
interrupt you, love bug.
Sure.
What you may have missed is the other question is the answer. I'm going to read it to you. It was in the email, and it's this. If something could transform or change inside you as a result of this experience together, what do you want that to feel like?
then that's pretty easy for me. It was something that came up in therapy for me. My therapist had talked about um, just learning to train the mind, and that, and then she said, you know, like you are the sky, and then your thoughts are like the weather that comes through. And I'm getting that from this first section of the book. Like you're sitting back, as I want to learn how to, I want to learn how to better separate myself from my thoughts and my emotions. So what I want,
Mm,
so that's where I'm at. Yeah.
got it. So can you play around with me a little bit and imagine what that feels like? Just imagine what it feels like.
I in the book they were like, say hello, and I really very much hear the voice. I understand, but it doesn't, I'm not able to yet separate that from myself.
Totally. So let's just take a big breath and wonder, what would it feel like to feel separated from that voice? What would it feel like? Just like, what's one word that comes to mind?
Control, freedom,
Control, freedom, and one more
peace,
word,
peace.
peace. That's what I was feeling immediately as you were talking.
Yeah.
So what you're really wanting to feel as a result of this experience is peace. I don't know that control gives
Yeah.
you peace. That's your idea about maybe how to manage it all, but
Yeah.
peace is clear as a bell.
Yes, for sure.
Brilliant.
That's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, Cheryl.
Thanks.
All right. And then Jessica.
It takes me a second to figure it out. I am so thrilled to be here with you. I go by Jess, but Michelle, you can call me whatever you want.
Oh, wow, thanks. What a privilege.
I'm already receiving what I'm intending to come here for, which is a sense of freedom and joy in all things that I'm doing. Not like waiting for that permission, but really being seated in my soul gives me the permission to have that gap and to notice no matter what I'm in life, that I get to sit in that seat of the observer.
And what does
And
that feel like?
it's just like a great sense of freedom and joy.
Freedom and joy. I love that. I love that it's not you for you, it's joy. And I'm feeling that. In fact, I've got a little note. I want to talk to you more about that. And then your experience with this book before or not?
Yes, I have digested this book and incorporated it into my life. This is now the third time, and I'm noticing it in very distinct points in my life that I've come back to it. And it's completely different each time, which is showing the transformation that it's bringing forth. So it's really incredible. I'm
I
excited.
love it. Thank you so much, Jess. Perfect. Barbara.
Yes, I'm Barbara, and Michelle has introduced the book to me, but I recall seeing, having some conversation with friends about this book over many years now, which is interesting, or the writings of and experience of this particular person who's written the book. So, but this is my first time, and unfortunately, I didn't complete my first assignment. I apologize. I hope you can hear me okay. I'll hold this up a little higher. For me, it's very much the same. my quest is to become more patient, more kind, more loving, and less grumpy and less irritable. There we have it. Thank you.
Amen to that.
It's
Beautiful.
about others. Life is about others. Life is about relationship, right? Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Barbara.
you for doing this.
Thank you. And Mike, is it possible to see you? I'm apparently having problems with my video and audio. I've been on since beginning, but am just lurking. You can't use your audio, really? Because I just see that your microphone is off, but you could. All right, sorry. Well, I am sorry too. Hopefully you get it figured out for the next one. So here we are. I just so appreciate even that beginning of our conversation. And please remember what you said in answer to the question, what do you want to feel? Because it will be a tether point. Ironically, the way I use that word, a tether point. Something like you already have a sense of what it feels like to want that or to feel that. You know what peace feels like, you know what joy feels like, you know what open feels like, so it can be a tether point, especially when we think about this front end of our conversation, so much about the racket of the mind. And it can be just so noisy and so relentless. I did want to have a quick little conversation with a few of you because of what I've already known you were feeling in anticipation of this, and I thought it would be illuminating to all of us. So, Jess, if you could just jump back in, and because I could really feel you in that state of excitement. And, I just really, if you could just take maybe 30 seconds, 40 seconds and just say more about, like, some people would take this with trepidation or worry or fear or frustration. Or there's so many ways, but tell me more about how is it that it's excitement and joy that is driving you into this experience?
Yeah, I'm noticing right now that tether point for me of being freedom, which means there has been a lot of control in my past experiences that have me holding on to the sense that I don't have freedom. And then witnessing what it was like the first time that I ingested the book, and that I was so my identity, and that I was tethered to a lot of beliefs of the way that I had been being. And now being able to like witness the contrast of how I'm ingesting it now, where there actually is the separation, there's an excitement that you can be here no matter where you are in the journey of awareness.
Ah, right. It doesn't have anything to do with circumstances or stuff or
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Perfect. So perfectly said. And then I wanted to pop in with you, Sam, if you have a moment to come back, because I was really aware of you wanting to, like, you got onto this book, you were sharing that with me, and then you were like you just said, I've read it 5 times in the last 5 months or 1 month or something. And you jumped into this group kind of partly to remember it or something. So could you speak into that a little bit?
It's more wanting to stay in the conversation. So I immediately moved from reading this several times, and I had the opportunity to first break it open. I mean, I have probably owned this book for a decade, thinking I had read it. I went to go do a silent retreat, and they said, "Bring a spiritual book." This happened to be at the top of my pile. I have no idea how. So I grabbed it, and as soon as I opened it, I realized I have never read this book before. And reading it in a space of 8 days of complete silence was mind-blowing. So I probably read it at least 2 or 3 times just in that time. And Yeah, it was so illuminating, and in that way where I understand the witness just through meditation, so I know what it's like to step back and separate myself from those little chatterboxes. However, I had never given it a body and a life, and having done that in a space of silence, I wanted to choke that bitch out, pardon my language. I mean, talk about annoying, and everything that he says in there is like, you wouldn't take advice from a friend like this. I would lock that person up, but no, I have to live with it day in and day out. So
Oh
yeah,
my
I have a lot of
God.
gratitude for this book, and I'm super excited just to be in conversation with other people who are delving in. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah, so great. Thank you, Sam. Oh my God. On that note, I really want to share with you something that I've shared with a couple of folks in conversations around this. And just last night, Mike jumped in just last night, and I, in my conversation with him, was revisiting this idea of microdosing. And I love that, Jess, you're saying ingesting, because my experience of this material and what I want to use as a shape for us inside this conversation is if you could approach it with me like you might imagine, or maybe you actually have microdosed plant medicine to achieve an altered state of consciousness, or how you might sit in meditation in order to achieve an altered state of consciousness. And unlike some book clubs that don't have transformational in front of it, it could be a lot of the yickety yak. It could be very intellectual, and it could be full of our already always thinking. It could be shaped by all of our opinions. And if it goes like that, I'm out. That is not what I'm signing up for. I am signing up to bring us together in sacred circle. And that is a point that I have to really, really land in for myself, because last night when I was getting ready for our start, this is my meditation room. And when we do our 21-day meditations, coming together every morning, this is where I'm sitting on my sheepskin rug and on my cushion and with my candles lit and like this. But when I came in last night, I was looking to sit over there for some reason. And so that I could sit in a more comfortable way or a more casual way. And got my lights all situated for that. And then this morning, I'm like, what am I thinking? And I know what it was that I was thinking is I was being shaped by the idea of a book club. We're all sitting but I realized this is a sacred circle. This is, listen, I'm shy about it. And I think that's part of the reason why folks who want a spiritual conversation might be drawn to my conversations, because I am a little shy about it. I don't, I, I don't even know what God is half the time. I'm lost and found, but I am a spiritual seeker, and the things that I do tend in that direction. So I lit the candles and I lit the sage this morning. I redesigned the whole, and I sat on my cushion on my carpet, because it is a sacred circle. This is what I'm inviting us into, is a conversation like the sacredness of plant medicine. So I say that because I will keep nudging us away from conversations that have a lot of opinion and that have a lot of old beliefs. Like, we can be stuck, but as long as we're interested in moving towards what you all just said and then some, because it will just unfold. So I'm going to ask you again to step into the conversation with me now. So if you want to just get your microphones opened in advance, and I will call you just because it's easier than waiting, because we've got only an hour. I want to ask you, what drew you into this conversation? And I want you to refer in your answer, if it's comfortable, to the term the untethered soul. because there's something about that, or something that you heard about that, or something in those words, maybe, possibly, probably, that also drew you into the conversation again and again, or for the first time. So can you start us out, Cheryl?
Oh no. Okay. What drew me into it was this sense of community, was your leadership, was hearing from everyone else to help me on my path to gain more wisdom and to have a greater understanding of the light that's in me, that's Cheryl, and then the voices, and like I'm wanting to do that work. So
Yes. Like the beatniks do. Snaps for that. Thank you. Oh, Mike, you made it fully back.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
awesome.
Sorry.
So Mike, I'm going to ask you the question that I'm now posing to the group. What is it that drew you to this inevitably? I mean, to get you here this morning. And if your answer could address the title, The Untethered Soul.
Oh, yeah, I've been pondering it. I reflected last night after talking with you that this has been a journey of mine since my 20s, like a seeking type journey. And I have felt like an untethered soul since that period. And it, obviously it's been a while. So, boy, uh, I don't have any experience with this book, but I have plenty of experiences with similar books of seeking, searching, looking for answers. The question of, who am I? Why am I here? Has been one pervasive throughout my life. So, not sure if that fully answered. What did I miss?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I appreciate everything that you said. And I also just, one of the things that when you weren't able to pop in that I wanted to ask you about, I wanted to ask you to address, because four people came to mind. What? Oh, there was an audio, but four people came to mind in terms of wanting to check in on the starting place of where they're entering this conversation. I checked in with Jess because I knew her starting place was excitement and joy. And I wanted to check in with Sam because I knew that she was longing to stay in this conversation and keep this flame lit. And I wanted to check in with you because of what you and I talked about last night, your
Yeah.
starting place.
Honestly, trepidation and self-doubt.
Yep. And there was another word you used that I deeply resonated with.
What did I say?
Blase.
Blase. I am feeling just very blase.
Blase. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So I really appreciate, first of all, the honesty of it. That's my favorite thing in the whole world, is just like raw freaking truth. And like, I really want to know what this group, the vastness of where this group is coming from and wanting to go to. And to finish that conversation, Mike, what did you think about the question that I'd sent you? And what is your answer to that question? If something could transform or change inside of you as a result of this experience together, what do you want that to feel like?
yeah, to me, that's a two-part question. Like, what would it be, and then what would it feel like? I honestly, I don't know. I've been pondering this, and I don't know. I guess the opposite of what I'm feeling right now, which is
Exactly, right? So
trepidation.
what's the opposite of blase?
Uh, uh, confidence, self-confidence, awareness, comfort in where I am. I don't know, honestly.
Well, I heard confidence and I heard comfort in where I am.
Excitement.
Excitement. That's the opposite of blase, right? Like life force, full back up, and a brightness.
Right.
Yes. Amen. write a note. Write that note
Write
right
a
now,
note.
so you don't forget. All right, awesome. And then, Steve Matsumoto, what drew you to this?
So in looking at the word untethered, or let's ask the question, like, what was I tethered to? I
Oh,
would
I
say in the
didn't ask
last
that
couple,
question, but I did
yeah, I
ask you
would say
to
that in the
refer to the
last couple,
title.
yeah, I would say in the last couple years, I've really been examining things that I've been trapped by or tied to. And I would say at this point in my advanced age in life, what are the stories, beliefs, and attitudes that I keep telling myself or reinforcing to myself? Where do they come from, and do they serve me? And if not, can I get rid of them? So that's what I feel tethered to, and kind of
Yes,
not wanting to be tethered
yes.
to them is kind of what drew me to this.
Right. Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. And it really, it also just reminded me of Mike. You said, I guess I feel like an untethered soul. And I'm wondering about what the meaning of that is to you. Good, bad, just from like the starkest, is it a welcome thing or is it an unwelcome thing? Because of course, my understanding as you speak about it, Steve, is what am I tethered to that is like the buzzkill in my life? Right. And freedom to me is like untethered to all the things that weigh me down and distract me. So just, give that a little gander. And Melody, what drew you to this and reference the title?
Um, I've also been a seeker for a very long time. In fact, for as long as I can remember, I've been a seeker since my early teens. And I started on a really soul searching quest 12, 13 years ago. And this book has always like been in the back of my head because of like, I remember when it first came out, it had all the, like, I think it was Oprah that first like talked about it. Um, I completed a 1 year shamanic program last year. And towards the end of my program, I posed the question to some of the participants of like, if you had one book that made a profound difference in your life, like what book would that be? And the majority of them said this book. So I revisited the book after having it forever and I started reading it and I didn't quite get through it. I kind of stopped at midway point. And so when this opportunity presented itself to me to join your group, I was very excited about it because I always do better when there's like when there's just participation, when we're all aligned with the same kind of goals. So but yeah, I've lived recently the past few years. This is why Jess invited me, was like just a life of anxiety and stress and fear, just worry all the time. And hypervigilance has been a part of my daily living, and it does not allow a lot of aliveness and a lot of joy. And so I'm just so open to anything that can crack me open and allow some of that light in.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Wonderful. Let's just take a deep breath. There's a lot already on the table. And I hope that there's some comfort in knowing that the things that feel like uniquely our, let's say, nightmare, don't turn out to be unique at all. That the challenges of being a human are shared. And I want to start moving into the first section of our book, Awakening Consciousness. And I found myself just clarifying. I found 3 simple points or points of reference inside that first section that I want to share with you and see if we can just step through it a little bit. The very first idea was essentially step back. So I want to just take a breath into this idea of stepping back. And I want to tell you a little bit. So first of all, I think that's where my journey really began with this book, is really having a visceral experience of stepping back. And for me, it seems to actually have a location in my head, because I literally feel like my consciousness goes back. And I don't know if there's any science or physiology or anything that could explain it, possibly, like in terms of the older part of our mind, the newer part of our mind, blah, blah, blah. But I definitely feel like it requires stepping back and kind of like out of the sea that is my time space reality. And the idea of stepping back is the idea of stepping into witness, right? So the two big ideas are step back and watch. If I were to just try and like completely, shorthand part one, it starts with step back, and secondly, watch. And watching is witnessing. And I wanted to share a quick story with you about this, and then I want to step into a conversation with you about the step back part. So just give some consideration, absorbing what step back is for you. I want to talk a little bit about the value of witnessing in the work that I've done, trying to help people disconnect from childhood patterns. And we do deep work. I do like a 2-day retreat here where we're identifying the primary childhood pattern. We're actually naming it. And then we do all these processes to release around it. And one of those processes is called instant forgiveness. Usually our childhood patterns are related to a mother, a father, a sibling. Sometimes it's an environment or a set of circumstances, but mostly it's one of those three characters. And in this forgiveness exercise, we establish 3 locations. One, in a kind of Gestalt way, I play myself. And then 2, I play my mother, my father, my sibling, and I literally set them up like across from each other. Like you stand here and you talk to, I'll usually put like stones or crystals to hold spots. And so I'll be me, and I'm talking to my mother, my father, my brother, my sister. And then after I speak my piece, I move over, I walk the person over to the other spot, and now they're their mother, their brother, their sister, and they're talking at me. But you have to get into the energy of that. And then eventually, after a back and forth, a nice gestalt around that, I'll walk us over to the 3rd position. And that's the position of witness. And that's where everything changes. Everything changes. Like people who never thought that they could or would want to forgive their motherfucking father or their, and we're talking about people who have been traumatized by poor parenting or traumatized by alcoholism or abuse. I mean, like tough stuff where you kind of like, maybe you're justified in never forgiving, but they always find something different in that witnessing, because you separate out of all of the pre-existing beliefs and notions and thoughts and everything, and you get away from it long enough to see something clearly, more clearly, not being so defined by those things. So that's the value I see of the step back, and that's the value I see of the witnessing. So let's take a few minutes and chat a little bit about that. And who's the first person that has something they want to talk about regarding step back? Barbara.
Okay, yes, I think that's really valuable what you mentioned, because one of the things that now that I'm older, I'm beginning to understand is that the terrible things that happen to our parents become transformed, but transferred essentially to us. And these are the issues that we work out and with them and also inherit from them and take over and carry on with. Those are tough things to get to. And that would be really valuable.
Amen. So that's just a vote for the witness. That's a vote for the watching. That's a vote for the stepping back out of all the preconditioned and ways that we became preconditioned to think as we do, to opinion as we do, to have preferences as we do. And then there's just the madness of the constant narration and conversation in there. The madness. If we take a moment, and maybe you did get a moment to step back, and if you did, I would love to hear about that. Anybody else in the call? Did you feel even a moment of stepping back and just listening to the voices? And who is that? Raise your hand or open your mic. Sam.
If you mean if you've had the experience of being able to step back and be the witness, is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
do it. Talk
Yes.
to us about it.
Most definitely. For me, even being introduced to this book, I feel like it was like years in the making. Like so many things came into play. I don't know if anyone else has had this experience in the past, but like doing self-help, anything self-help in the past, it was always involved, changing some aspect of yourself. And through this, I got to look at that juxtaposition of emptying, meaningless, perfect, whole, and complete, and bringing them together. Because no one and no one up here is going to leave the sandbox. Like we all get to play together now. So if I have a part of myself after having done some shadow work that I might not like, I'm going to embrace it. And because the more I ignore it, the more it just gnaws at me, right? And so now I have that opportunity to step back and look at what these little meaning making machines really are. That's all they are, is like little chatterboxes going on inside my head. And even when I have that moment where I can step back into the witness and feel so free and so expanded, then all of a sudden the little voice comes in and goes, wow, it's been quiet in here for a while, huh? And then the other one starts going, and it's just a shit show. But it's also really fun, to have that opportunity to sit back and watch this circus go on. And yep, they're my monkeys.
Amen. Beautiful. Who else can talk a little bit about the step back? This is just the first part, right? So we're on this long journey and we just microdosed a couple of ideas. What we microdosed the idea of stepping back. Jess.
Yeah, I'm really noticing in the time that I've been ingesting this, and what I noticed today was that I could untether myself from what I inherited, the conditioning. And I feel like that's where that freedom and joy comes in, of like, oh, I'm not the sum of all these parts. Like I'm actually I'm witnessing what the sum of these parts is.
Oh, I love that distinction. That is beautiful. I am not the sum of all these parts. I am the one watching the sum of all those parts and all of the voices of each of those parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take a good inhale on that one. That is a great, because we take these like statements like I am the sum of all my parts. It's a really important distinction that you just made. Yeah. So, and the other thing I love about microdosing is you don't have to know everything else. We don't know where else this journey is taking us inside this book yet. Maybe a little bit if you read forward. I did too. I like to read a little bit forward, and I'm eager for part two, quite honestly, because I know what it feels like to close. And I've been feeling more closed than open lately. So I feel it is the antidote, opening. So there are other pieces to the puzzle, but right now the pieces are so simple. Step back and watch. And it may feel like monumental, right? Because I really heard you, Cheryl. You were like, I am having trouble separating the Cheryl that is me, and all this noise, because it's there. It's like filling the room. So little bit, little bit at a time. It's like even one moment of going, oh, wait a minute, I just watched that this time. Even if it was for a millisecond, I just watched it. That's a victory because it's the beginning of like a reorientation and a reframe. And then the third piece is come to know the one who watches. That's my big summary of this part one. Step back, watch, and then come to know the one who watches. That's just curiosity. Come to know the one who watches. So when you have that one moment of like, gosh, I think I actually just witnessed that with a little bit of separation. Like I can almost see the character. This is a lot of what happens in the pattern breaking work that I do. When I do the 2-day deep retreat called Beyond Limiting Patterns, we get separation from the pattern and we can start to see what it has to say. And we can start to question what it has to say. That childhood pattern, the mother of all our patterns, is the one that's robbing us the most from the kind of experience we want to have in life. But when we can get some separation from it, it actually begins to lose its power because we're kind of like, what? And underneath a lot of it, there is a lot of misunderstanding, but, it's just all woven in. So talk to me a little bit in your own personal experience inside the work inside this section. I want to go until 10:20, which is about another 4 minutes. And then I want to play you a little something. And then we're going to get into wrap up. Your experience of stepping back, watching, and coming to know the one who's watching. What do you got? Michelle.
So I was just away in Mexico, and so I had more time and freedom to like observe all these things. So I really like tapped into the whole conversation, all of the voices, and they've been there obviously for there and will continue to be there. And so it's this stepping back of like what I've noticed is that there's more like, okay, that's enough. Like that's enough. Like quiet down, like can you, and then also like more reasoning talking, like, do we really need to have this? Would you like to, I'd like to change this. This is enough of this way. So I think that's that piece of like sitting in the seat of consciousness. And I'm like, okay, who, like you said, Sam, it's like, these are my monkeys. And I'm like, okay, well, you monkey number 1, 2, 5, and 25, take a hike. This is enough. And so I know it's just more repetition and all of that. And I also did want to say that I've had this book for at least a decade, couldn't get through it. I find it fascinating that a lot of people cannot get through it. And Sam brought it up just maybe a day before you brought it up, that she's like, I really want, I read this book and I want to have this conversation. Will you read the book? And I'm like, I have the books freaking on my nightstand for I don't know how long. And then this came up. So it was perfect timing. And that's what I want to say.
Brilliant. And what it reminds me of is one of the things that a distinction in this book that I find very challenging, and I wonder if you do too, that the voices are voices of reason and voices of doubt. And they have good things to say and they have bad things to say. They're negative and they're positive, and they're all voices. And I am still the one back that is watching and listening. So even the voice, and I've got this voice too a lot lately. I'm like, shut the fuck up. But that is still a voice. That is not the seat of consciousness. The seat of consciousness, when I really get there, is silently amused by the whole damn show.
Yeah.
But when I have the voice of shut up, it's another voice. It's a reasonable request, but it's still another voice. And then there's a step back from there. which is like, I think mind-blowing. All right, let's take one more comment from the peanut gallery. Melody.
At that mute button. Yeah, so I've been trying to get into the practice of observing, of questioning what it is, you guys call the monkeys, but I like to look at them as like different versions of myself. Like, what version of myself has this need or this worry that needs to be observed and addressed? And so that was something that was very helpful to me in that first part of the book, was like that voice in our head isn't just there just because it's there. It's there because it's like trying to control our surroundings, our environment. And that was very freeing for me to have that realization of, oh, like it's that hypervigilance. It's that like making sure that I'm paying attention to everything and everybody in my environment so that I can have a semblance of control. And so that's what I'm starting to do now, is get like playing with the idea of being curious. Like, why am I having this conversation? Why is this voice here right now? And what version of myself is it trying to comfort or protect,
So good. Thank you so much, Melody. I have done a fair amount of work with voice dialogues, and it's very much, there is a compassion for all of the voices, and there's a respect for all of the voices and the jobs they're trying to do. They are trying to keep us safe. They're trying to be comfortable. So I totally appreciate that perspective. And I wanted to say, I forgot. So I'm going to just let that pass. I want to play you guys a 4 point, like a little under 5 minute clip from Ram Dass. And this clip is called Mind Karma. And then we're going to come back and wrap up our call and get prepared for our next part. Here we go.
Our karma is our mind. And the mind stands in the way of a clear view of God. Our minds give us clouded perceptions. This incarnation has in it individuality. Individualism leads to war and anger and insecurity and fear. is our mind. The mind stands in the way of a clear view of God. Our minds give us clouded perceptions.
I think that is such a radically cool idea that our minds, our karma is our mind. It's just there's something illuminating about that for me. I really love that. If you liked that sound clip, I am going to send it to you with the recording that I'll send out. I'll send the recording of each one of our calls to the group via email, and that email will include the link to that song by Ram Dass. I also wanted to mention, in this first section, there was a reference to yoga and there was a reference to meditation. And it is, I mean, for me, that has been the path. Meditation, particularly Kundalini, the way that I do it with Kundalini yoga, the way that I practice it, it is the yoga of awareness. So it's cultivating awareness of awareness. And that is basically, what is being, the direction we're being nudged in is awareness of awareness. And to step that far back and to really become curious about who we are in a infinite way, not in a finite way. And part of the reason why I was asking that question about what led you to this and refer to the title is because this title, The Untethered Soul, and soul is quite a conversation. And it's not everybody that wants to talk about soul, but essentially that is what we're talking about. That seat of consciousness is soul. It's the infinite. And it can sound very religious. And that's what makes me shy about it because I am shy about religion. I'm not comfortable with religion. But apparently I'm very comfortable with spirituality, and I'm very curious about the soul. So that was why I'd asked you to, because I don't want to be shy about Ram Dass referring to God. I don't want to be shy about that, but I do want to have a context around it. It's like this is a conversation about the soul. So we launch into our next part 2, which is called Experiencing Energy. And I just started to dip my toes into it as well, like you said, Steve. And I'm just excited about being reintroduced to the opening and closing that is going on inside of me, and how much I do want to lean into the open versus the closed and its relationship to energy, because I am struggling with energy in a big way lately. Like I am tired and sluggish and slow. and dispassionate. You know, there's too much of that going on. And I need the energy that opening will give me. And I can feel the way I'm closed around my heart in particular. You know, life can be discouraging. So it's like one of the metaphors that I've used once before that I love is like, I feel like there's a windshield in my that there's like a windshield between me and my soul, and that windshield gets splattered with like bug guts as I move through life, and it becomes this film between me and my life. And it is the stuff of life and the way I'm experiencing it. But every once in a while, I got to get the high pressure hose out and like, zzz. And, you know, my 21-day meditation practice is one of the way I do that. And this is another one of the ways that I do that. And the reason why I was talking about them both initially is because they will overlay each other. And that we'll get about 3 weeks into this book. And then I'm going to start the 21-day meditation challenge. And for anybody who wants to roll into it, we get to really practice every morning awareness itself. All right. So I will say it is 10:31 and I want to end on time. I don't feel that I need to rush away. If you wanted to stay and chit chat, I'm just going to stop the recordings, and I will see